What is up, everybody? Excited for another episode drop today. Hopefully, you all had the opportunity to listen to Tawny last week. And if you haven't, listened to the intro episode as well, just to kind of summarize what we're doing here at Sojo. But have another great episode. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy this journey. California boy comes over to Utah, high basketball hopes. Journey kind of changes, path changes, ends up working in a really cool role for KSL currently, and his journey is unique. So I hope you guys enjoy listening a little bit about the journey that Garrett has been on, and that you guys can maybe relate to some of the things that he's done and experienced. But regardless, cool journey, cool experiences, and hopefully something you guys will enjoy listening to. So without further ado, Garrett. All right, so I'd like to welcome Garrett Thompson out to the Sojo show here. Garrett is originally from California and went over there to Santa Margarita High School. Came over here to Utah, going to the University of Utah. Since then, decided to kind of stay a Utah boy, as they say. Stayed over here and has had a lot of really cool experiences throughout his time. Helped out with the University of Utah men's basketball, and then as well got his chance to kind of start his career in coaching, helping at Judge Memorial. Kind of been in a tech career himself, but also on the side has been able to start a position with KSL, working as a color coordinator or commentator for them over there. So a lot of fun things going on. So thanks, Garrett. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Yep. Thanks so much for having me, Cooper. Appreciate it.
So jumping into this, I mean, obviously you're here now in Utah, but everything kind of started in California. So what was it that really, obviously you helped out with men's basketball. We talked about that for a little bit, but what was it that got you started with basketball? What was that love of basketball? Who introduced you to it? What really started that in your life?
My dad really introduced me to the sport growing up. So I have one brother and two stepbrothers that I met later in my childhood. But my brother, being about 6 years older than me, was always there. Also a basketball player himself, but played a lot together growing up. And our dad really supported us through our sports journey, playing junior basketball all the way up to high school. And my dad being a great high school and college athlete himself, he ran track at a very high level when he was in high school and college. And he didn't really love track all that much, but he was an incredible middle distance runner. And so
Okay.
he had to pay for college somehow, so he got a scholarship for track, and that's what he did. But his first love was always basketball as well. It's always been our family's favorite sport, I think.
Gotcha. So it's, from a young age, it sounds like basketball was the family go-to. Was there other sports that you played at a young age then?
Yeah, I played baseball until I was about 10 or 11, and played a year of soccer, but that was about it. I mean, I played basketball from the time I was, 4, 5 years old, maybe, starting at a very, very young age. My brother played way more sports than I did. He tried everything. I mean, he played basketball, Pop Warner football, baseball, roller hockey, soccer, you name it. He definitely gave it a try. But for me, it was, a little bit of baseball, 1 year of AYSO soccer, and then just all basketball.
So it sounds like, I mean, your dad being a collegiate athlete himself, it sounds like you guys had a household that was pretty open to the idea of sports. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were always encouraged to do what we wanted to do. We were never, forced to play any sports. Um, and obviously, like, we were introduced to certain sports growing up, but we lived a very active lifestyle as kids, always outside, playing basketball in our little, driveway hoop and hanging out with
Yeah.
friends and stuff. But our parents always supported our decision to play sports, and they were always there at games. Driving us all the way up to LA and Ventura counties to play or to go to basketball games. And Yeah, they were always there to support us, financially as well, on our journeys. So I was very grateful for them growing up.
I think that's huge to hear is just that your parents were very supportive of it, but it also doesn't seem like they were overbearing, that they were forced into sports. It was something that they enjoyed, and just through their means, you guys kind of found sport yourself, able to play it, enjoyed that exposure that they gave you. With that, talking a little bit about your journey. So playing basketball, playing a little soccer, a little baseball, at what age was it that you started to really play more competitively? It wasn't just something that you enjoyed doing, but it was more competitive nature.
Probably around the fourth or fifth grade. So I played NJB basketball growing up, and around I think between like third or fourth grade was when players started getting selected for travel ball teams instead of just
Yeah.
playing locally. And when I was in fourth grade, I was selected to play on a travel ball team, and that was huge. And that really kind of cultivated that competitive nature um, for me. And from there, it just kind of blossomed. I did take a brief hiatus in middle school. Didn't play basketball there, but then I grew like 10 inches in like a year and a half, and decided to give the sport another go. But yeah, playing club ball at around 9-10 years old was huge, and kind of cultivating that competitive nature.
And California is a massive, massive, I'd say, pipeline state for top basketball prospects, and all the AAU circuits, everything that's going on there. Can you just speak to how competitive that really was to make a travel team and how that kind of affected your trajectory with basketball and how you saw it for your future?
Yeah. So, like you just said, California is extremely competitive across several different sports, and basketball is certainly no exception. Um, I had to compete against a lot of other players to make that travel ball team. And now that I'm thinking back on it, it did start in third grade, so I didn't make the team third grade, but made it in fourth grade. And
Sure.
on from there. But but yeah, you know comparing like basketball here in Utah, I mean, most of the talent at the high school level is going to probably be found around the Salt Lake metro area or the greater Wasatch Front area. I mean, in California, it's all kind of separated by county. So Orange County,
Yep.
LA County, San Diego, Ventura, Southern, Central, and Northern California, they're all going to have their own, competitive club teams that compete against each other. And yeah, with California being a state with a population of almost 40 million, there's you're bound to get some very good talent at that level. But yeah, it was extremely competitive. And as I made my way to the club level in high school, we weren't only playing teams in California and at summer tournaments in Vegas, but we were traveling to the East Coast. I mean, I played a tournament in Springfield, Massachusetts, against a bunch of different East Coast teams and teams from around the country. So yeah, an extremely competitive environment for sure.
So how do you work that as far as, being a kid, being on this incredibly, I mean, incredibly time sensitive travel schedule as far as going to Massachusetts even? Like how do you find or how did you be a kid and then also play basketball?
Yeah, I mean those club tournaments always took place during summer break, so we did have a break from school when that was happening. But yeah, I was very busy. In high school, I had to balance a rigorous academic course load at a prep school and basketball. So I was busy, all day, every day, and I took a lot of honors and AP classes in high school as well. And academics were always the most important thing to me. I wanted to take advantage of my education, and my parents never had to force me to study or to do well in school. I put all of that pressure on myself. So and it was the same with basketball too. I mean, I've always been pretty hard on myself, and I set very high goals and um, ambitious targets for myself. So yeah, it was tough balancing all those things, but I worked hard and was always able to get it done in the classroom, and make all of my team activities for my high school team and for my club team in the summertime as well.
And looking at it, because like you said, that is a lot. Obviously, some of the stuff's going on through the summer and whatnot. But looking back at it, is it something that you think for young kids now, is it too much to be traveling, doing all this stuff, or do you think it's a good, gateway to collegiate basketball, or just a good gateway to seeing different cultures, different, environments, whatnot?
There are pros and cons, certainly. I think the sheer volume of games that these young players play can really have an impact on their bodies, especially their joints. As they move forward in their careers, and you know ESPN analysts and people who are prominent within the sports media world have talked about how many club basketball games these young players are playing, and it it could be a possible explanation as to why so many players at the professional level and the collegiate level get hurt so often, because they're used to playing like you know three games on a Friday, 4 games on a Saturday, 4 games on a Sunday, a crazy schedule like that during the summer, and that's just it's great for exposure. And
Hmm.
a lot of college coaches are watching you, and it's great for that and for getting to the next level. But you're
Yeah.
playing so much, and that is very, very taxing on your body, and just something that you have to be mindful of moving forward. And it's why players are encouraged to really take care of themselves. Eat healthy, get plenty of rest, stretch, make sure you're doing the right lifts, but not overdoing it. Anything to prevent injury. It's super important because this kind of AAU phenomenon. It's not that old. I
Yeah.
think it's probably about I think it probably started happening in like the 90s or something, with players playing this many games. I wasn't around until the late 90s, so I obviously wasn't there to see that. But yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot to take on.
And I asked that because recently, whenever their episode will come out, but I was talking to a gymnast, and she talked about training 40 hours a week at a young age and that was just seen as normal. That was common for being in the gym that many hours. And at the same thing, we look at the attrition rate of gymnasts, especially the females, and I mean they're peaking at 22, 23. Is that's they're done. They're retiring. They're done with gymnastics. A lot of them are going competing in Olympics at such a young age, 18, 19, and then they peak out and they're done. So it begs the question, do you feel like there should be some type of legislation or something done for all these games for younger athletes? To your point of they're playing so many games all throughout the season, and you talk about maybe that's why they're getting hurt later on because they've already beat up their body so much. Like, is there something that you think we should do?
Yeah, I mean, I think governing bodies like the NCAA or high school organizations. I think in Utah it's the UHSAA or something like that.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, maybe those organizations can kind of take a look at how much time these student athletes are spending, practicing, training, and maybe there should be limits if the attrition rate is so high for certain sports. Because I mean, that gymnast that you spoke to, she said 40 hours a week was normal. That sounds like a ton. I mean, that is pretty
Hmm.
much training, uh, from the time you get off school until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So that's a lot of time to put in, and yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to a sports legislative body kind of taking a look at that and seeing if limits should be implemented. So we take care of our players and their health and wellness first, and as a result, they can experience more longevity in their sports careers.
Yeah, and it's a question I want to put out there and continue to have the conversation, especially on this format with more people and get ideas from people listening as well. Because I think when you look at it, you talk about football and you have all the 7-on-7 tournaments and things that they're traveling to and they're doing basketball with all their tournaments, baseball tournaments, back-to-back double headers, different things like that. And it becomes a point of one, you're putting all that on your body, and people will say, you're a kid, you can go through a lot, you can recover, and I totally agree with that. I was a kid that once I finished a football game, I wanted to go out and hang out with my buddies and keep going, like I didn't want to stop. So I get that aspect. But to your point too, you talk about how important nutrition is and stuff like that. I had no idea what nutrition was, or the proper ways to go about it until college. That wasn't something that I even really thought of or looked at until it was way later in my life. And so to your point, it's not like these young teams have a team doctor, a team physician, or a nutritionist that's traveling with them that's saying, hey, this is how you should refuel between the games, this is how you should be doing this. I mean, a lot of that's left up to the coaches, and they're like, yeah, go to Taco Bell, get some food, and then let's hit our next game. So I think that's just some of those conversations, looking at that and saying, hey, is it too many games? Are they really getting the nutrition and stuff that they need to be doing all of that? And does it really affect the longevity or the development of the sport or the athlete in the long run if they, pull back some of those games?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And to your point, I didn't know that much about nutrition until I got to college either. So our team at the U, we had athletic trainers, a team nutritionist, a bunch of academic support staff to help our players during study hall hours. So there are a ton of resources at the D1 level, especially the high level, at a Power 5 school like the University of Utah. But yeah, growing up, I was just told to eat a lot and put on weight and just
yeah,
make sure that I'm getting stronger. So
yeah.
yeah, I think it's imperative that parents, coaches, and people who work for those sports governing organizations take a look at that and just make sure that players are taking care of themselves.
Totally agree. I think the biggest nutritional advice I heard when I was little in Pop Warner football was one of my coaches said, if you don't drink soda, you'll run faster. And I
Yeah,
remember I was like, I'm gonna cut out soda. I'm gonna be
yeah,
the fastest kid on the team, and I swore by that. I was not the fastest kid on the team, but I got off soda for quite a while. Maybe that helped me in the long run. I don't really know. But so you're in Utah now, and you had a little bit of a journey getting there. You're talking about basketball in high school. Obviously, you're playing at a pretty high level if you're going on a travel team, going around. And you talked about you had a little bit of a hiatus. So what's the journey from high school to the University of Utah?
So, and like you said, the level that I was playing at in high school was pretty competitive. So I went to a big football school. Our school was always very good at football, but we also had a great basketball team. And so we were always competing in the CIF Southern Sectionals and in the California State Tournament as well. And yeah, I got the opportunity to start on my team my sophomore year. And the year before, we won CIF Division 3 AA and made it to the semifinals of the state tournament in the same division. The very next year, we got moved up to actually, no, I think we might have stayed in the same division. And I started on that team, and it was a lot of fun. But at a private school, as I'm sure you're aware, um, coaches, administrative staff, they're allowed to recruit student athletes from around the country and around the world. So I
Yeah.
got the opportunity to play with a lot of great players from Europe and China primarily. And yeah, so our team just kept getting better and better year over year. Um, and we ended up moving up to Division 1 AA and then eventually the Open Division, which is the most competitive in the state of California. That happened my junior year, and that year our first game of the Open Division CIF Southern Sectional Tournament was against Chino Hills, when they had all
Oh
three
yeah.
Ball brothers. So senior Lonzo, junior Leangelo, and freshman LaMelo. And that team, they're regarded as one of the best high school teams of all time.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, we ended up losing to them by 34, which actually wasn't that much because they beat Modern Day, one of our rivals, and a team that always seemed to beat us by like 50. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was extremely competitive, but it was a lot of fun. And interestingly enough, most of my coaches had some sort of Utah connection. So um, 3 out of my 6 high school coaches were born and raised in Utah, and the other 3 either played or coached at the collegiate level in Utah. So so yeah, it's something that when it excuse me, like when it was time for me to make my college decision, like I didn't really
Yeah.
consider that. I'm like, oh, like all of my coaches either played or coached in the state of Utah. Like maybe they can tell me what the U is like or what it's like living in the Salt Lake area. But I made the decision to go to the U because I wanted the big school experience, and they had a great poli-sci program that I was interested in. And yeah, just ended up making that decision. And it was turned out to be the best decision I ever made, which was great. But uh, but yeah, it just so happened that several of my coaches were familiar with basketball within the state, and yeah, a couple of them kind of helped me in my journey as I continued in college as well.
Very cool. And with that, because I think all athletes have to kind of get to that aspect in their life when they're like, all right, I'm kind of like hanging it up competitively. People can keep playing. I mean, you can go play rec ball, you can go play church ball, you can do semi-pro, do all these different things. But when you said, all right, I played at a high level in high school, I'm sure you had aspirations to play in college, or you could have even, if not D1, gone D2 or something. So what was that? What was the reasoning, or what was that final thought? They're like, all right, I'm done with basketball, and then you're okay and you accepted it.
So out of high school, the only schools that recruited me and were interested in me were D2 and D3 schools, and make no mistake, D2 and D3 basketball are very competitive, and definitely should not be overlooked because I've met a lot of very good players who played at that level, and even though I had the opportunity to play at that level, I didn't get any full scholarships, and the schools were pretty small. And for some, that's a great thing. Some prefer a smaller school and a smaller classroom environment. But I really wanted the big school experience. There was just something about like a big university that I was really drawn to, and visited a few in the state of Washington, where my parents are from. So I went to Gonzaga on a college tour, went to Washington State University, and my third and final tour was in Utah at the University of Utah. And I don't know, there was just something about it here. It's a beautiful city, and it's kind of like it's a big little town. So you know, big enough to where there's tons to do, both in
Yeah.
the downtown area and a bunch of recreational activities. But it's not too big to where you can kind of just get lost and um, kind of lose focus as a college student. So I thought it was just the perfect combination of a big school in a relatively big town with a lot of opportunity.
And so coming over to Utah, now you're going to school, studying a program that you're really interested in, obviously. What was it that got you to then get involved with the men's basketball team and kind of pursue that course of action?
So I met the team chaplain actually at a like club and career event at the student union. His
Interesting.
name's Tommy, and he is the pastor at his own non-denominational church here in the Salt Lake area. And the team chaplain position is kind of an unofficial role, but he was good friends with the coaching staff, and so he would stop by and, say prayers and, devotionals with the team and stuff like that for those who wanted to participate, and just an all around great guy. But I met him my freshman year at that event, and I guess I stood out to him because I'm 6'8", I'm a pretty big guy, and he's like, "Hey, did you ever play basketball?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I played in high school," and we just kind of struck up a conversation, and I told him like, "Hey, I'm not playing competitively anymore, but I would love to do something to stay around the sport." To just still be involved. And he said, well, I actually work as the team chaplain, so I can talk to one of the coaches or our director of operations and see what they can do. And at the time, this was my first semester at the U in the fall of 2017. There wasn't any room on the manager staff for me, but my second semester, I got an interview with Scott McBurn, who was our video coordinator at the time, and he said, "Yeah, we would love to have you on staff here." And so, starting that summer between my freshman and sophomore years of college, I started working for the team. But yeah, it was just kind of happened by chance. I met the chaplain Tommy at that event, and he introduced me to Scott, and the journey kind of began from there.
Very cool. So just random meetup in a sense, and ends up being something big for you. So you get to be with the team, working with the team. How did that experience really shape you and kind of the rest of your career while you were finishing up your degrees and then graduated and transitioning to the next phase of your life?
Um, it really taught me how to manage my time well. So throughout my time in college, I was taking a full course load, each semester, but I had to have my class schedule revolve around the basketball schedule. So practice was typically 1:30 to 4 p.m. every day. And so I had to make sure that my classes were all in the morning. So 8 a.m. to noon. So I starting my sophomore year, I didn't have the luxury of not taking an 8 a.m. class, but no, I was it was a full-time job. I mean, I was out of my apartment from 7:30 a.m. to like 9 p.m. every day. So, and I was also a member of the Kappa Sigma fraternity in college as well. So, I mean, those fraternity activities also kept me busy, and I was involved on our executive committee and all that. But no, it really taught me that staying busy is something that I prefer. Like I love a busy schedule. I love having a very structured routine, and it really cultivated a much better work ethic. I always felt like I had a really good work ethic, starting from when I was young, like through high school and college. But yeah, I buckled down and worked, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, from attending practices to games, and my dad seeing me on Pac-12 Network behind the bench. It was really cool. But yeah, that job kept me busy, and introduced me to a lot of great people as well.
And I think it's a cool perspective you have, because I think people talk to athletes in here and you see the athletes playing on the TV and whatnot, but you don't get to really talk to the people behind the scenes. And to your point, it really is a full-time job. You're waking up in the morning, you're going to all your classes just like all of the student athletes are. The only difference is instead of you running up and down the court, which I'm sure you did it a few times during the practices yourself anyways, but then you're watching film, breaking this down, taking care of equipment. There's a lot of other auxiliary jobs that you're still doing, and then they're off, going home, doing their homework, whatnot, and you're still at the arena, still at the court, still at the offices, meeting with coaches, going over itinerary for travel. Like, there's a lot of behind the scenes aspects to it. So with all that being said, what is it that keeps you going? Why keep going when you could just focus on school? Like, you could just be a full-time student, focus on school, and it would be good. Why keep going with basketball if you are not playing?
Yeah. I think even though it was a lot of work for very little pay, it was a ton of fun. I mean, we got perks, sure. I mean, I got to, um, eat at the athletes' dining hall at the football facility, once a day, and it was basically like a gourmet buffet each time, and got to eat with the players on the basketball team, but also other student athletes at the school. But what it really came down to was, how much fun I had while I was doing it. When you're a manager, you're not, on the team as a player, but you're a very important part of the team. And we, even though it kind of felt like a thankless job sometimes when it was really busy and in that type of environment, it's very intense. But we received a lot of recognition from players and coaches and all of our other staff, and it felt really good to just play an important part in for that team. It was great, and like I said, the perks were great. We got a ton of equipment. Whenever the players got new shirts, shorts, shoes, all that stuff. We got that stuff as well. So yeah, no, it was awesome. It was a difficult job, but it was a lot of fun, and I would do it all over again if I had the chance.
Yeah, it's cool to hear that even though, you weren't playing, you did find value in being there. And to your point, there are some fun perks obviously that go along with it, getting to know the players too and whatnot, the relationships. But I think it is also it's a thankless job, and so it makes it even harder if you don't feel the tie-in or the buy-in with players, with the coaches, if they're not giving you anything. And that leads me to my next question for you. You said you got to meet a lot of cool people. I mean, what was it about being in that position that helped you get set up for, I don't know, your coaching at Judge or your current role at KSL? How did some of those experiences tie into those positions for you?
So while I was working for the team, um, my one of my former high school coaches, his name's Brian Swindlehurst. He would attend some of our practices. By the time I got to college, he was coaching at Salt Lake Community College, one of the best JUCO basketball programs in the country. And there were quite a few players on our team that came from really good junior college programs like Slick, like College of Southern Idaho. And so, he knew a lot of our guys. They were friends with him as well. And yeah, he attended practices. So I got to stay close with him and see him a lot. And once COVID hit in March of 2020, the team realized that they had to reduce their staff, for health and safety purposes. So I unfortunately could not stay on staff any longer that year. But Coach Swindlehurst introduced me to the brand new head coach at the time at Judge. His name's Sandy Kolovrat. He's still there. And he said, "Hey, I know you're not managing for the men's team at the U, but if you're interested in coaching at all, I can set up an interview with Sanyan, and you can talk to him. And if it's a good fit, great. If not, no worries." So I took that opportunity. I talked to him, and we both hit it off. And he invited me to be on staff for that season. So yeah, I can't stress enough how important networking is at any level, but especially in the sports world, because it seems like everyone knows everyone. So if you can leverage any connection that you've made to get yourself to that next level, you got to do it, because one thing that my dad has always told me, and my grandpa told me as well, it's like, you don't ask, you don't get. And, nobody owes you a living. Nobody owes you anything. So you got to go out there and take it for yourself. So, and for me, it was a combination of, not only asking for those opportunities, but also, those opportunities being presented to me and me just kind of taking advantage of them. So yeah, you gotta leverage those connections to kind of move up, and they're super important. So just never stop networking.
Love it, love it. And I think that that's a great thing to say, and it's actually something I ran into recently. I was speaking to an athletic director at a FBS school, And she was telling me it was all her networking and leveraging and just her great mentors within an athletic department that got her to where she was. And she really made a point of like you can't steal third base by yourself. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And it was just the aspect of like, well, you have a coach there signaling you when you should do it. It takes, a missed throw or something to happen, and then you have to go get it at that moment when it's there. So it's true. You have to leverage, network, and utilize those people. But it's also when you're in sports, you do get that opportunity to meet so many people and have a large impact on others too. For your sake, jumping into coaching, was coaching something that you had always looked at doing, or not really an avenue that you had thought about before?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it until the opportunity came my way, but I'm so glad I did it because not only did it keep me busy during my final 2 semesters at the University of Utah, but I got the opportunity to do something that I kind of never saw myself doing. I had a lot of great coaches, growing up and, through high school and college that I worked with. But, being a coach yourself and, teaching those lessons to your players, it's a whole different experience. And I didn't realize how stressful it was kind of, being on the other side as a coach, because you do everything to prepare your players, for a game, um, work really hard in practice, watch game film, and come up with a comprehensive game plan. But it's up to them to execute it. And so I realized just how stressful it was, in very high intensity, close games. But it was a ton of fun, and I was glad to coach those guys, and I had a lot of people who looked up to me, and yeah, you got to set a good example in a position like that. So it's something that I took very seriously.
So your time at Judge, did you spend just the one season there, or did you have a couple? Are you still coaching? What's that look like
Just
for you now?
Yeah, just the one season from 2020 to 2021, and because in May of 21 I graduated with my bachelor's. So I started working full time, and didn't really think I'd have a lot of time to kind of manage an 8 or 9 to 5 schedule with basketball. But over time, I've realized that it can be done. I mean, if practices
Yeah.
are like at like 5:15, 5:30, later in the evening. But I didn't want to stress myself out too much and do too much when I'm just starting my career. So
Yeah.
I took a little break, but that door is actually still open. I'm still talking to Coach Kolovrat at Judge, and they actually won a state championship last year. So that was awesome. When I was there, we came in third place. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I might go back and coach again.
Yeah.
Never say never. But yeah, right now I'm busy with the color commentary for KSL Sports. So that's kind of my side gig at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, coaching is definitely something that I see myself doing in the future. If I decide to have kids of my own one day, I'll definitely be involved in some way.
Very cool. And I mean, let's talk about that side gig a little bit with KSL. How's that experience been for you?
It's I tell you, and I talk to my dad about this all the time. Like these cool opportunities just keep coming my way, and to do fun stuff with sports, especially here in the state of Utah. And I've just been so blessed to do a lot of cool stuff in the sports world. But yeah, the side gig is going really well. I started doing it late last year, during like the quarter or halfway point during the boys basketball season here in Utah. And I do it with my buddy Mike Goodkind. He is the in-arena host for the Utah Jazz, and looks like he will also be the host for our new NHL team. here in Salt Lake. So very excited for that. But yeah, he was doing the play-by-play, and he was looking for a color guy. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to do this with me? Like, you got a good voice, and you're very knowledgeable about the game." And I said, "Yeah." And I love being on the call with him. I never thought so. Like, I always kind of thought I would, eventually get to coach at
Yeah.
some level. But I never thought that I would get the opportunity to be a color commentator, like, in the broadcast booth. So
Yeah.
it's been super cool, and I've been learning a lot from people in sports media, um, all the folks that work at KSL, my friends at Fox 13. I'm good friends with Andrea Urban. She was the Utah Sportscaster of the Year last year, and yeah, just all the folks that I've met in the sports media realm. It's been an incredible ride so far, and
Yeah.
I feel like I just got started. So there's a lot coming up next year with football, basketball, and baseball, and there could be more. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
That's cool, and I definitely wish you the best and all that. And you bring up a point that sports is definitely cutthroat, making a team, missing out on opportunities, whatnot. But I also have found that the sports community can be very opening, um, and just wholesome in a lot of different ways for giving positions, being there to give advice, helping new people out in the industry, whatever it might be. They're also very open, especially when you step off the athletic field and it's not necessarily this hardcore competitive, like I'm gonna beat you down every single play. It becomes a different environment, and you really get to learn who people are and understand their own journeys like we're talking about here. So I think it is a really unique opportunity to understand as well. So I love all the experiences, everything that you've got to kind of go through. And I know Judge is a really cool school, especially in the state of Utah. For those that don't know, it's really centralized in the state, in the city itself. And tell me a little bit about the diversity of Judge and some of the maybe the students that you got to coach over there in basketball and kind of the impact that it had on you.
Yeah, so like you said, Judge is kind of centrally located within Salt Lake City proper, and it's really the only like quote unquote inner city school in Salt Lake City. And as a small Catholic school, it's there aren't many like it in the state of Utah. I mean, besides Judge in Juan Diego, I'm not aware of any other Catholic high schools in the greater Salt Lake area. But that being said, it is an extremely diverse school. I met, student athletes from all different backgrounds, especially a lot of kids who were the sons and daughters of South Sudanese refugees. So, Utah historically has always been a state that has been very welcoming to refugees from um, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and people experience just untold hardships to get here to the U.S. And I'm very blessed to live in a state like Utah that welcomes them with open arms. But yeah, met a lot of kids whose parents worked very hard and struggled to get them there. And yeah, no, it was just a great environment to be around, and meeting all of those kids from different backgrounds and kind of hearing their stories and talking to their parents. um I thought it was great, and it made the experience that much more special to me.
And did you have some of them on the basketball team then at various levels?
Yeah, several.
Yeah.
So we had our sophomore JV and varsity teams, and yeah, there were players from all different backgrounds on all three of those teams. But for example, one of the my head coach at Judge, his name is Sandy Kolovrat. Like I said, he immigrated to the U.S. from Serbia when he was a young kid. So yeah, his father was a political refugee, and they escaped former Yugoslavia during that war between 1992 and 1995. And so he himself was a refugee, and so I felt he could really relate to those kids who were the sons of political asylum seekers who were looking to just give their children a better life here in the States. So and then assistant coach Omar Saucedo, he immigrated from Mexico when he was a young kid, and his son Aiden was one of our leading scorers on the team. So yeah, just a very, very, like I said, very diverse school, people from all different sorts of backgrounds and experiences, and it was great to learn from them, and just hear their stories, because with my background, I've been blessed to meet people from from all over the world, studying political science at the University of Utah, and also going to a high school that embraced a lot of international students. So and I've done a lot of traveling internationally myself. So that's always something that's been very important to me, learning from people from around the world, hearing about their lives, their experiences, and just overall learning from them and their journeys.
Very cool. And I asked because I've had the opportunity to experience a lot of, especially Latin culture, getting me a lot of different groups within South America as well. And I really feel like sports has the power to be a unifying platform amongst different cultures, different ethnic backgrounds, especially working on a collegiate football staff, people from or seeing groups of the Pacific Islands and from just different countries, different backgrounds, different upbringings, and how it all works and comes together as a team. And I think sports gives you a cool opportunity to see into those cultural backgrounds. So I was going to ask you, while you were coaching or even while you were in high school playing whatnot, because you did go to such a diverse background, did you see examples or did you have personal experiences where you did get to experience some of these different cultures and how it just kind of meshed on the basketball court, or by being on a team together, you got to learn from some of these other players from China, from different places like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And going to a high school that had, I think, the maximum number of Chinese international students that was allowed under, some sort of California law. I'm not sure exactly how it worked, but yeah, my school had about 100 Chinese international students, and a lot of them played basketball. And I knew that basketball was certainly starting to become more popular in China, but these guys and their love for the game was, it was palpable. I mean, with the sport becoming more popular, more and more people are playing it over there, and coming over here and playing at a competitive high level. I thought it was great, and I got to learn from all of those players. I also played with guys from Serbia, Norway, Spain, Germany. Got to learn about where they're from, and how they got started with basketball, and it just really illustrates how global this game has become. I mean, you look at all of the best players in the league right now. They're not American. I mean, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Nikola Jokic. I mean, these players are predominantly European, with the exception of Joel Embiid, who's from Cameroon. But yeah, they're all international, and the game is just becoming increasingly popular in Europe, Africa, Asia, and in Latin America. And it's great to see, and that was really exemplified by the guys that I played with in high school.
Very, very cool. And I love that aspect because you bring up a great point. You look at the NBA now and you see all the different players that are playing in the different backgrounds. And I think it does also open the doors for you to learn a little bit more about their culture, about where they're from, and understand it a little bit more. And I think it's something that should be celebrated. And I don't think it's celebrated quite enough, especially when it comes to sports. I think there is sometimes that closed-mindedness that, hey, we're just playing sports. Like, this is it. This is all you should be doing. Don't worry about anything else. But I think it is a platform where you can come out and show, hey, I'm Chinese. Like, this is some of my culture, some of my heritage, and I play basketball. Like, that's something that we really like to talk about is it's not just an athlete. You're obviously in college, you're a student athlete, but what are they? What are you outside of that athlete title that you're kind of pinned with sometimes? Okay, Garrett, I want to switch over to this little segment and kind of rapid fire, shoot some questions over you, get some of your thoughts and opinions. Okay. All right. How did you stay motivated throughout your basketball career, but how did you stay motivated throughout that time if you ever ran into any injuries?
Um, that's tough because I felt like I always had this sort of natural motivation to keep going. Like I dealt with a couple injuries and brief sicknesses in high school that sidelined me, but
Mhm.
I was always there supporting my team because I loved being a part of something that was bigger than me. And yeah, it might sound cliche, but it's always kind of something that came naturally to me. I just I'm a hard worker, and I love being a contributor to whatever team I'm
So, what are the most valuable skills you gained from participating in sports?
on. Overall, it's just a huge character building experience. So you learn trust, you learn responsibility, um, uh, how to work well within a team, um, and you learn how to be a good listener. I mean, coaches always love athletes that are very coachable, athletes that are willing to hear constructive criticism and make adjustments. So yeah, sports it teaches you all of those things, and those lessons are extremely important in life in your career because you're going to have times where you have a boss that's difficult to deal with, or difficult coworkers, and being a great team leader and being someone who listens well and someone who can lead. It's extremely important, and sports impart all of those lessons to
Perfect. And with that, I think you bring up a really good point that sports, I think, is an extension of the classroom. So you talk about all those things that it builds to you, the character and whatnot. So talking on character a little bit more, I think this is something when you, especially at the high school level, because people are always trying to win, and it can be in the tournament, 7-on-7, whatnot. But in what ways has sportsmanship really affected you learning more about sportsmanship in the games and stuff? What role, I guess, does sportsmanship play for you in your life?
it plays a really big role. I mean, sportsmanship teaches you how to win with class and lose with pride. So um, it's it's something that it's extremely valuable as move forward in your life, because you're not always going to be successful. You will experience failure. There are going to be obstacles in your life, and um, those lessons that you learn about sportsmanship through sports growing up, and even at the collegiate and professional levels, it's super important. And one of the most important lessons I learned regarding sportsmanship growing up, especially from my dad, is don't let what just happened affect what's going to happen. So, in other words, don't get down on yourself, don't hold a grudge, and persevere. I mean, move through those obstacles and come out on the other side.
And you've talked about sportsmanship, learning it from your dad, but you got to be on both sides of the fence. You got to be a coach now, and you got to work even within a program, and you got to be a player. So having those different views, looking back at your earlier years, playing sports, is there something you wish you would have been taught better by a coach, or do you think there's a lack of teaching there as far as sportsmanship? What are your kind of thoughts as far as that level of coaching goes?
So one thing that I always emphasized as a coach, and something that was taught to me by Coach Colevrat at Judge, and all of the great coaches that I had in high school and in college, is you got to be honest with your players. I feel like there are unfortunately quite a few coaches out there that aren't always upfront and honest, and you just end up doing your players a disservice when you string them along and you know tell them that they're going to have this opportunity when you're not like necessarily preparing them for those opportunities at the next level, or you're not just being honest with them about their abilities, or their attitude on or off the court or the field. So yeah, you got to be upfront and honest. And as a player, I always valued the coaches who were honest with me, who always told me the truth. And I'm still friends with those coaches to this day. And unfortunately, coaches that just that weren't, you just end up not talking to them very much, because you realize how important that lesson was, and those lessons were unfortunately missing from those interactions with those coaches. And you're not always going to have great coaches. Some are going to be difficult to deal with. Some aren't always going to teach you the lessons that you should be taught. But obviously, it's always important to have a lot of respect for those coaches in your life, and to just make the most out of those experiences regardless.
I love that you brought up honesty, because I think that is fundamental as far as coaches go for teaching your athletes, because you look at the psychology of it, you're not going to buy in if you don't trust someone. That's the first level of anything. If you don't trust someone, you're not going to fully buy into whatever they're trying to coach you up on, to instruct you on whatever it is, if you don't have that level. So if you're, to your point, stringing along athletes, you're never going to have the true level of trust that you need to have the full communication to maximize the potential that you have on that athlete, maximize your impact on them. So I completely agree with that. So last thing here for you, Garrett, is just kind of some actionable advice that you might have for anyone listening in, lasting impressions. If you could reach back to old you in high school, or maybe someone that's in your shoes right now in high school, college, whatever it might be, what do you want to tell them?
Reach out. Definitely just reach out to those connections that you have in your life. I know we talked about this earlier, regarding the importance of networking and leveraging those connections. But I want to emphasize that again. I wouldn't be here today if I, didn't leverage those connections that I had made in the past. And and also, you got to take advantage of those opportunities when they come your way. If it's something that kind of seems out of your comfort zone, I would say, still go for it, because believe me, the people that you meet along the way in those experiences and those memories, I'll value those for the rest of my life. So yeah, if you want to work in the sports world, it's definitely a tough nut to crack. It's difficult to get into. It's highly competitive at every level. But reach out to people who work in sports, or coach, or who are around sports in some way, or even those who might have had former jobs in sports. Like if you want to work in this field, and to have sports change your life, just reach out to those people in your life that can help you.
Perfect advice for everyone. And as always, closing out, is there any shout outs, anything you want to give to anyone out there?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, shout out to my dad and my brother, two of the most important people to me, especially on my sports journey. Always there to help me practice, drive me to games, and just encourage me to be better. Also want to give a shout out to Coach Brian Swindlehurst. I know I mentioned him on on this podcast session, but he was an incredible high school coach. Unfortunately, only had him for 2 years at Santa Margarita as a player. But when I came to Utah, he happened to be here as well, coaching. And when I got connected with him, he connected me to Coach Colabrat, a judge, another guy who I want to shout out for giving me that opportunity to coach. And lastly, my good friend Mike Goodkind, who gave me the opportunity to work as a color commentator for KSL Sports. Something that I've been really enjoying lately, and something that I'll continue to do on the side as time goes on here. But there are many other important people that have been there for me in my sports journey. Another one, Coach Larry Kristoviak, former Utah men's basketball coach. Another shout out to him. But yeah, there's too many people to name. But those are the folks that I really want to make sure they know how important they are to me in my sports journey, for sure.
Love it. Appreciate it. And do you want to throw out, do you have any Instagram handles, anything you want people to follow you on?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Garrett_Thompson.30. So I've been posting a few game highlights from the games that I've called recently. And I'm always tagged on KSL Sports Post for the games that I'm working. So make sure to give them a follow as well. But yeah, if I'm posting anything, it's usually on Instagram. Haven't been doing it that much lately, but trying to get back into it.
We can understand that. So go ahead, follow him over there. If you fell in love with his voice over this podcast, hopefully you can go and listen to a couple of games if you're in the state of Utah, catch his highlights, whatnot. Also want to give a shout out to all those coaches out there that are giving old athletes, or maybe not even athlete, their first opportunity in coaching. We want to give you guys a big shout out, because we know it's hard to kind of give someone their first year into coaching, but it has a huge impact, like Garrett talked about, for him, his first year over there at Judge. So shout out to all those coaches that are giving those opportunities. But as always, we appreciate everything on the show that we learned today, talking to Garrett, and we want to support you guys on your journey. Let us know in the comments, whatnot, about your guys' journey, what's going on, and as always, live Sojo.